Okay, fantastic. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so let's see here. So we're going to help you figure out what your unique coloring book idea is and how to get it out in the world. So first of all, let's start with going through. Oh, so if you're watching the recording of this, what we're going to do today, I'm with Catherine Jenkins, and she's agreed to do a session with me where I help you figure out what your unique idea is for your coloring book and how you get it out in the world. And the process I do with that is called the Coloring Book Idea Prep Kit. This guide is a part of it. And there's a 10-step roadmap inside of that that walks you through the steps in order to start to come up with the idea and then validate it. And what I mean by validated is validated for yourself, meaning it's something that you can get behind, something that you are passionate about, a subject that you really want to get out to the world and share. And something, because again, the thing with color, with any product, whatever it is, whether it's a coloring book, a written book, or anything else of that nature, it has to be marketed. You have to talk about it. You have to share it. So it's, I always am a firm believer in getting behind your idea so that when you produce your book and actually have it out in the world, you can get in front of it. What I mean by getting in front of it is I mean being able to talk about it and be like happy and excited to talk about it. Like you're sharing it on social media, you're talking about it in your own personal circle. One of the little strategies that I always give my students is carry your book around with you everywhere. You know, take on the identity of being a published author, because you are, once you get your book done, you are a published author. And people are fascinated by creatives, artists. They're also fascinated by people who publish a book, because not everyone, a lot of people say they want to do a book, but very few people actually do it. So I want everyone who goes through a process of developing a book, whatever the book's format, subject, or content is, I want people to be, I want you to be excited about and proud of what you've done, because this takes work to put this together, whatever it is. And so the more that you can get in front of it, meaning you're talking about it freely with your church, with you know, as you're picking up your kids from school and going to the grocery store, whatever, the more copies of your book you'll sell, because people will be like, oh, you did a book, let me check it out. So that's why that's what I mean by when I say get in front of the book. And you can do that when you're proud and excited about what you created. So that's the reason why I talk about, if you're not excited and passionate about the ideas you're developing it, then it's going to be hard for you to get into the world and talk about it. So that's the reason why I created this validation process, because you're validating it for yourself, not necessarily just for the marketplace, but for yourself. So that's the reason why I created this roadmap. And I'll tell you all how to get a copy of this roadmap as well. But what Catherine has graciously agreed to do today is to help to go into a deep dive to help her validate the idea for herself. And so there's several sections to this workbook. The first part is section 1 is connection, part 1, and it's getting to know yourself. In other words, what's your why? Why do you want to produce a book? And then we move right into section 2, which is who is the book for? Who's the audience you're creating the book for? What's the subject or theme, the topics you're interested in? And then you want to understand why your market buys books. So we'll do some research using some tools that I share with my students in my programs on how to go out and research ideas to see, okay, now that we're clear about what's passionate for us, now we need to go out into the world and see, okay, what's already being sold, what's already out there in the marketplace, so that we're looking for our single point of differentiation. I'll explain that more as we get into that part of the process with Catherine today. And then and that's the part of this part, that what I call the foundational research that we'll do using Amazon, Etsy, Google, and even some things with ChatGPT. And then this next part is collaboration opportunities. So again, getting the book out there, a lot of people assume that the only thing they have to do is get the book produced, put it up on Amazon, and it's just going to get found organically, and people are going to buy it, and they're going to, you know, be able to go buy the house in Capri. I hope that for you, but I also know that, you have to market your book. I don't care if you are already a #1 New York Times bestselling author or you're just starting out. You have to market the book. And collaboration opportunities is one of the best ways to do it, meaning you're talking to people one-on-one, face-to-face, or on the internet or whatever, on podcast or what have you, and you're talking about your project, and they're putting you in front of their audiences. So we're trying to look for those opportunities to be able to do that, to find those influences and those collaboration opportunities. All righty. So that's basically it. There's a couple of more things I'll go into in a little bit, but that's basically it. So again, Catherine has graciously agreed to do this with us today to kind of demonstrate how we go through this process. So I'm going to start out by basically, I'm kind of interviewing Catherine. She's filled out this workbook for herself. So I'm just showing you the blank version of it. Catherine's already gotten a copy of the workbook and she's working on it for herself. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ask her the questions, and then I'm going to do a little coaching as we're talking. And so that way you can kind of see the process of how I help you refine the idea and find the opportunities to market the book even before you even get it done. So that's what this is, what you're watching today. That's what this experience is all about. So let's start right out with connection part #1, getting to know yourself. What's your why? And the first question I'll ask you, Catherine, is why do you want to publish a coloring book? What's your story?
Well, I think that this is a story. It's a good story, and it should be told. I am a veteran myself of the U.S. Army. I did 2 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. And when I was in the Army, I was a veterinary technician. And it's kind of surprising. A lot of people don't even know that job exists. But for the most part, we would work with military working dogs. And so we supplied their medical needs in sometimes wartime conditions. And when we weren't deployed, we were back home and making sure they had the medical care they needed. And so what I found throughout my time in the military was that there's some awesome stories about a lot of these animals. What we think of now with military animals, as far as we think of canines and military police, but during World War I and II, we saw a lot of other animals that were used, and they have some pretty awesome stories. And so how that affects the coloring book idea is, what I would like to do is put some of those stories into a coloring book form. And I'm an artist myself. I've always enjoyed doing just different things, watercolor. I've always been good at drawing. And so it's something that I've just I started working on a coloring book before I even had really the idea of making it a coloring book. I was just doing something for my nieces to enjoy, as far as making drawings that they could think of. And then I thought, okay, maybe I could actually do a coloring book about this. And then I started looking, and Rodney, I saw your podcast, and so I've gone through all of that, and now I figured out that I do want to do this coloring book, and I want to tell some stories.
Wonderful. Now, when we talk about stories for this particular, which I love the idea, do you have, are you like writing part? Like you have, like, let's say a dog, let's just use an example, that does the dog have a name and you're writing a little bit about them, and then you got the coloring picture next to it? Is that kind of what you're thinking when you say story, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's kind of that's the thing, is I'm trying to figure out what makes sense as a format, because that's what I was envisioning, was having something maybe like a coloring book page that was like a full page and has I'm trying to think of some of the dogs. One of the dogs that I actually got to meet when I was in Iraq, his name was Flapper, and he was a Belgian Malinois. And so I'm going to put his story in there. Me and my team, when we were in Baghdad, we actually treated him. He was hit with shrapnel, and sometimes the military working dogs they're not always friendly, but this guy was, and he was just fantastic. And so we got him back, and we were able to get him back working, and that kind of thing. So I think what I'm thinking is kind of a small, like maybe even less than a page, but just share a little bit about their stories, what they did. And so I was thinking of kind of their story on one side and then their picture on the other. But the thing about it, I'm not sure about the formatting, is that I know it's important to have a kind of like a um, you I've enjoyed coloring myself, and so if you um, have too much in there, you're coloring on pages, and you can see the back of it. And
Right.
I want it to be really good quality, so I don't want it to have that kind of problem.
Got you.
So
Okay. Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you, was hopefully you could give
Mm-hmm.
me an idea on what I'm looking at with all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways that you could do that is you could have the coloring page of a flapper, the drawing of flapper on one page, and then what you could potentially do is what I did with my book is that I put the opposite page would be the solid black, so that that way you reduce the chance of the bleed through on the page that you color. So then what would happen is, let's say maybe the illustrations on one page, they flip it over to the back, and then that page facing, so it's looking at it from this perspective, this page now is black, and then the story is on the right side of it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a
So
lot of
that could be the way to do it. You also could also put you can do what I call reverse type. So the back side could be black, but in case if you don't want it to be just a completely black page, then maybe you put like a quote or something there, just some type on the bottom, just something really light, but it's not a full page. It's basically a solid black page, but on the bottom there's something like I don't know, it could be an inspirational quote or something that relates to the essence of the story of Flapper in this case, and then the full story about that. So depending upon how many illustrations you put in there, because each one's going to have a story, then you're, as far as we're staying on the topic of formatting, um, you'll have to really edit really well the story so that it fits on one page.
right.
You can. So that's going to be really important, because otherwise then you're talking about, if you're trying to stay within a format where it's like illustration, flip, black, opposite page story,
Okay.
saying, and then we'll have to alternate out the black pages in order to be, so then you flip it over again because they're just reading it. Now, the other issue is going to come up is that when you flip it over, if you put a coloring page directly behind that, when the person colors that, that could potentially, depending on what they use, that could potentially bleed through to the story. So we have to start alternating out the black pages in
Okay.
between. So it's going to be a matter of finessing it to figure out, but that would be probably the best way to do it, if you're going
Yeah.
to have an illustrated story to go with each individual image. But what's going to make it important is that you try to keep that story down to literally one page. And you really don't want it to be much longer than that anyway, because people,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
set up
totally agree.
yeah, go ahead. Good.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, I wanted it, and I know we're probably gonna get into this. So, as far
Mhm.
as the target audience, I'm looking at kind of young, maybe middle school, high school, young adult kind of audience. But something that adults could enjoy coloring too. But I think for the most part, it's gonna be something that just kind of gives people an idea of the story. And I was thinking about maybe even putting some reference in there to, where they could go to find out more information if they want to know more about it. So I don't have to fill up a lot of the pages with text, because I want it to be a coloring book that people can enjoy.
Another, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can multimedia this experience. So another thing that you could do is that if they're, let's say, and maybe not with every page, but this is such a passionate subject because people love animals so much, especially in the context of what your experience and exposure. There could be opportunities for you to and this would fast forward into some of the collaboration opportunities, but let's say that you get interviewed by someone, let's say like on a podcast or something around animal rescue, around so few people know anything about, in my experience, know so little about the military, the animals in the military. Hardly anyone, I'd have never seen anything or heard anything about that. And so you're combining such two passionate subjects, especially for Americans, that I could see a lot of opportunities for you to be interviewed on a lot of different platforms for that. So what I'm potentially suggesting, this may be a future update to the book, is that you could place, have you heard of QR codes?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've used them.
Yes, you could put a QR code on one of the, say like on the blank, on the black page, you could put a QR code there in white. They could click on that and that'll take them to an interview that you've done. Or maybe if you record, or if you just decide on your own, I mean, you could even tie to this book like your own little podcast. So you could do an audio recording of you going even more depth about the stories that happen in the field with, in this case, Flapper. So where everything is not going to be written on the page, they could then go over there to like YouTube, if you want to start a YouTube channel, for an example, and that could take them over there so that they can see your face and then connect to the story or what, you know what I'm saying? So there's ways to multimedia this. It's just going to take some thought. And of course, that's more work than just putting together the book. But I'm saying that might not be an iteration number one. That might be an update or iteration of it. But that's, go ahead. Go say.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, was if I do wanted to make some upgrades to it. Like I had thought about QR codes, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be too much to do, because I have a bad habit of making things overcomplicated.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do another iteration of it, that makes sense, because then that way I can get the coloring book published and then go back for, I don't know what the official word is for round two in publishing.
Right.
Make it something that does have a little bit more, because there's military working dog handler organizations, there's military history organizations. There's a lot of different things that factor into this story.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that would open up some avenues there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. So the only thing, let's say, we go with Amazon KDP platform to be able to print the book. The cover can't be changed, but the internal pages can be changed. So once you set that up on the platform, you can go in and do an update of the complete inside of the book without changing, but the cover just can't be changed. If you change the cover, then you got to do a whole new listing, like it's a brand new listing. Which may or may not be it may not be a big deal, but I just wanted to kind of let you be aware of that. But no, you can always update it. And of course, you also can offer it digital download as well as a physical copy of the book.
Okay.
So anyway, okay. I love it. I love the story. I think you got a great idea here. It's just a matter of putting it all together. So yeah. So let's get into what has stopped you from publishing a book.
So with that, I have started on a couple of different topics. So I think I really want to go with the story I've told you about, working with animals that have served the military in combat and different things. But I love horses. I've always loved drawing horses from the time I was a kid. And so I was looking at doing something like horses, rare horses of the world, and different things like that. And I'm thinking maybe once I get through this coloring book, then that might be something I do again. But for me, as far as what's stopping it, is the fact that I haven't done the drawings. And so that's the big thing. I have a lot of ideas in my head. I've done some research now, so I have a good probably 15 or so stories, and that I could do illustrations for. So I guess that's another thing too, but we'll get into that, I guess. But as far as, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's kind of like I wanted to make sure I had a good idea before I started doing the work, because it takes me a while to do a page,
Mhm.
and so I wanted to make sure I was on the right track.
Got you. Got you. Got you. Well, like I said, anything with animals is always going to be a popular topic. So I think subject matter is just a matter of the container or the context in which you will, illustrate these stories. Of course, again, horses, whole other level of passion. People have deeply passionate about that. Um, One of the things that when we move into the collaboration section of this workbook, this is where you'll do your sort of field research to find the Facebook groups. Is the first place I think to go to. And be clear, they don't have to be around specifically around coloring at all. Quite frankly, it works to your advantage that they're not about coloring. So there are coloring groups for sure that are very passionate. I know of one group off the top of my head that has, I think, 90,000 members in it. So a coloring group, those are in abundance. But for this context, I feel that you want to look at that, but you also want to look at the groups that specifically are connected to the subject matter of the book, and see what's kind of going on there. So in the beginning, you're never going in there just like, hey, come buy my book. You're going in there to get an idea of the culture of the group. What's the subject matters? What are people talking about? You're reading comments and you're trying to get a feel for what's happening in the group. Again, the culture of the group. And then if you feel like that there isn't, people in there that, you like to connect with, you can always send them a friend request to have a conversation with them privately, or you can contact the group, the Facebook group moderator, and introduce yourself, and then perhaps see what kind of collaboration opportunity could come of that. Maybe they interview you in the group as a passionate about the subject who happens to have published a book on this subject.
Okay.
So that's a very different way to go in it, as opposed to going to the group saying, here is my book, go buy it. You're coming in talking about the subject that everyone's passionate about. And a part of your introduction is Catherine Jenkins, author of the name of the book. Without ever having to push it, then people are going to want to know, oh, where can I go buy the book? Those who put their hand and say they are, because that's the thing. If I connect, this is what like some of the biggest names in the world that's publishing books, that's what they do. They come on talking about the subject that is of equal passion to the listener as well as the person interviewing you. They just happen to be the author of this book. Now, of course, yeah, they're there to sell books. I mean, let's get real. We all know that. But you don't have to get on there and go, oh, my book has 134 pages and it's black on one side with a QR code. And the other. You're not going on doing a hard sell. You're passionate about this subject. And if I'm passionate about the subject, I listened to a gentleman's YouTube channel recently. He was talking about YouTube and, the whole thing about YouTube and how much money he's made and so on and so forth. And all he did was mention, literally, all he did was mention was, oh, this is the book I read that helped me get this success. Of course, I went right to YouTube to go look up the book. He didn't hard sell the guy's book at all. He just mentioned it. Well, I was like an afterthought. Right. And I went to Amazon to go find it. So that's the way you want to approach it. You're coming in to talk about the subject. You want to come and talk about the story. You want to come in and talk about the joint combined passion for the subject. And you just happen to be the author of this book. And then the person interviewing you would say, oh, where can people go get it? Then that's your in. It's available on Amazon. Yeah. That opens up a whole new world. You're going into it. The best marketing that you will ever do is go into any situation thinking, how can I be of service to this audience? If you keep that as your number one focus, how can I be of service to this audience? You do that first, the book will take care of it. The sales will take care of itself. That's what I mean by get in front.
I love that idea and that approach, because that's one of those things where it's kind of like I don't want to feel like I'm selling, trying to just promote my book. But yeah, I mean, the story, I think there's a story there, just that, the story itself is there. And that allows me to really talk about it without having to just say, hey, come buy my book. It's great.
Mhm.
So I actually have a purpose, like you said, a
Mhm.
service that I'm providing. And
Mhm.
so that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's your, you put together the best book you can, the best product that you can, knowing that it can always be iterated, updated, but your sole focus then becomes on looking for the audiences that have a shared interest, and how can you come to them being of service, showing up fully as yourself and what you represent and what you're about. And when you do that, people are going to say, yeah, I want it. Even if I connect to you and your story, even if I have no interest in military animals, if I have no interest in horses, if I connect to your story, I'll buy the book, because even if I won't color it or whatever, or I just want to learn something new, or I give it to someone that I know as a gift, that I know, oh, they love horses, they would love this book. It's not just about the person that consumes it being the person that's going to be the person that keeps it. Or they may say, I know an organization that I'll go out and get a box of these and distribute them, or invite you in. I mean, you never know where it's going to go, but then it's going to be, what I'm going to say may sound counter. In some respects, it's not your business. Your business to show up. That's your job. And it picks up its own momentum and its own energy. And you just be present and be there and be available to those who show up. And that's your focus. Put out the best product you can, but just focus on showing up. That's what I mean by getting in front. So, and I think we may have answered the question, but I want to ask anyway, in what ways will your book be a contribution to help make the world a better place?
Yeah. Well, with that, I mean, I feel like this could bring some people together that haven't always shared, a lot of people, um, outside of the military community, you think of the military as kind of a singular group. And the thing is that everybody in the military has their own interest and their own, passions. And a lot of people love animals, but it's not something that you can outside of. I was fortunate being in the veterinary corps that I was able to work with animals, but most service members don't have that opportunity. But showing them, and even showing their kids, and in some cases grandkids, stories that connect those kind of passions, I think it would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
um another element, and I'm still figuring out kind of how to bring this in, is therapy animals. What we found with a lot of people that suffer from PTSD is that service animals are a really important part of healing from a lot of trauma. And so this kind of also brings in some connections there.
Good, 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 good. Yeah, and I was even thinking too, as you were talking, I recall seeing a commercial or a public service announcement of wounded soldiers who were back, who were going through rehabilitation, and them with their dogs, in an example. So this could be, in terms of more of the books, this could be the story of the soldier and their dog. That could be another potential, if the person is fine with sharing their story, this has a lot of legs, is what I'm trying to say. And so it's just a matter of you deciding what are you willing to get behind to really, do this. But this could be a series of stories around this.
Yeah. I just, even talking to you, it's like I thought, with bringing up Flapper's story, it's kind of like, we never met his handler. His handler was injured in the attack. And so, his buddies brought in his dog for us to treat. So, if I don't know if that would be something that I could, if somehow the stars align and I get to meet Flapper's handler,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that would be a pretty cool story too.
Well, and this ties back to one of the other ideas is that perhaps you can, this is where you can maybe interview, is you position the person that's called the handler. You could interview them. That could be a podcast, an audio. That could be of a YouTube video. So that's where there's part of the story. Maybe the illustration is a flapper, and perhaps if you're, the handler, that's the illustration that's in the book that they can color, and then the QR code takes them over there where they get to meet the gentleman or the person, I should say, and learn more. So that's another way to make it more multimedia and connected. So yeah. And let's take this contribution piece a little bit deeper. What do you, besides the inspiration aspect of it, what's the deeper message and contribution for this? What do you really want people who are maybe not in of this world, but outside this world, what do you want them to get out of this?
Well, yeah, that's a deep one. I guess the thing is, I've throughout my time in the veterinary service, I've just seen how amazing animals are. I've worked with so many military working dogs, but there's so many other animals that I've heard stories of. Sometimes it was just pets. Stories from World War I and II that, a stray dog was, became kind of the mascot, and it protected soldiers from attacks and different things that just really showcase how much that human animal bonds is out there. So I don't know how to really say that in an eloquent way, but something around that, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and I feel too, you'll pick up a lot of wisdom when you're out there actually in conversation with these people, these organizations. You'll pick up a lot of wisdom around that, and things will come to you. Opportunities as well as ideas will come to you. So you start out with the best idea that you have. And again, that idea is that you're just passionate about the subject. And because you're deeply intimately aware of this audience, and because you've lived it, it's been your own journey. You're not coming in as someone that could be looked at as an opportunist just trying to come up with some idea that makes a couple of bucks, but that this is your walk. This is your world you've lived in, the air you breathe, the water you swim in. So they're going to look at you as someone who is an ally and an advocate. And being able to, like I said, the story is everything. Everything is story driven. So the more that you can share those stories of the animals, as well as potentially that and the handlers as well, I think that's going to go a long way towards endearing people over to, in a sense, maybe even your movement, So there's a lot to unpack there, but it's sort of, the journey reveals itself, you know.
Yeah.
It reveals itself. Like, you get in the car, maybe you're in New York, heading towards California, but when you get in the car and you're pulling out of New York, you don't see California. You just keep driving down the road, and eventually 3,000 miles later you start to see palm trees, and you're like, okay, I made it. But you had to go through a lot of farmland and a lot of mountains and a lot of deserts before you got there. But if you keep going the right direction, it'll come together. Okay, great. All righty. So I think some of this we might have answered, but you would say, who is the book for? Would you say adults, children, both, grandparents? What would you say who the book is for?
I guess I would like to have young adults, maybe kind of teenagers to adults, young, or adults in general. That one I'm not sure exactly, but I guess I wouldn't call it necessarily a kid's book, but I think that, and again, it's hard to say I want it for this group but not this other group. But you can't write it for everyone, and that's true. But I wanted it to be well drawn enough where somebody that is becoming a skilled artist or skilled colorist can enjoy a little more difficulty with the drawings themselves than something that is more geared to a younger audience. So
got you.
that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, got you. Yeah. It's good to be as drilled down as possible, and there's nothing wrong with what you might look at of as excluding someone. And I'll share it out. This is one example I'll share with you. One of my students, she when she came to me with her idea, she wanted to create a book that would helping people who had been either were or are currently incarcerated, trying to get back into um, life after incarceration or potentially deal with life while they are incarcerated. And I asked her to be very specific about who this person was. And so she was, it was going to be men. This is the age range. This is where they were, so on and so forth. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't fully get my head around the idea because I'm thinking, well, how are they going to get the book? And then are they allowed to have pencils if they're incarcerated? I couldn't fully get it, but this is what she was very committed to. And the book had coloring pages, she wanted to put uplifting quotes in there that had a bit more of a religious feel to them. And, word quotes and journal pages for them. I said, okay, we're going to go with that. We're going to put, and the name of the book is called Serve the Silent. So we're going to go with that. We put the book together and it's out there. Now, who's bought the book has been almost everyone but that person.
No kidding.
And she has sold about 100 copies on her own. But she's had a full circle moment with it recently. She was doing a vending event. She does crafts and she's at a vending event. And she wasn't doing that many sales that day. And a young man approached the table who was looking at the book, and he had just not too long been released. And he started telling her his story because she was sharing her story, and she ended up giving him a copy of the book. And so when she said that to me, I said, this is who you were not even realizing who you were thinking about. But let me back it up a little bit. One of the things I said to her, I said, okay, why don't you do this? Why don't you do they buy two books, one they pass on. So instead of buying one, they buy two books, one they keep, one they pass on. I mean, they can send that book to a family member who's incarcerated or someone who's recently incarcerated. Because my thing was, how are they going to get the book? So I said, well, let's do a twofer. And that's really what's helped her sell the books, So they buy two, one they pass on. And so again, the young man who approached her on a day when she thought she's going to get a bunch of sales, he basically was like, that was his story. And that he was grateful that someone who was actually even acknowledging, that it's hard to come back and try to get your life back on track after you've been, and you need hope and you need, some faith around things. So anyway, I say it all to say is drill down as best you possibly can with who you want the book to be for, but others will show up.
Okay.
Others will show up. And others will show up. So when you're creating your pages, think about that get one person in your mind. And I would even go so far as to what's his or her name. What does he or she do? How do they spend their time? Is coloring a passion for them? Whatever. Get as detailed as possible about that person. So when you're creating your pages and you're putting a bit together, you're thinking about her or you're thinking about him. And you're even going so far as to say, would she like this? Would he like this? Because the more that you can drill it down like that, the better you're going to be able to, like I said, it'll help you when you're feeling like, oh, is this working? Am I able to put this together? It's like there's so much to do. I don't know. But you're thinking about, I'm doing this book for Catherine. I'm doing this book for Sam. So that keeps you in the game. It keeps you staying the course throughout the process of it all. So don't be afraid of excluding anyone. Just try to get as clear about your person. And it's going to be fun. And there's other things we can do to flesh them out. We can smoke them out, is what I'm trying to say. But this is one of the things to get good about. So we've kind of talked about subject and theme and idea for your book. So we'll skip that. And are there any books similar to this on the market? Have you been
No,
able to find?
not that I've seen. I saw your suggestion about how to do the Google search with
Mm-hmm,
adding
mm-hmm,
plus and I
mm-hmm.
forgot exactly how you said it, but
Yeah.
I worked that out and I didn't see anything that was like what I'm trying to do.
Okay. 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 So what I'll say on that note, and what Catherine is talking about here for you watching, is that there's a exercise I have you go through. It's basically you go to Google, you type in the subject or the of the book. You put the plus sign in, coloring book plus sign, and then you put it in for Amazon, you put in for Etsy, and then you see what results come back, and then you list them. So I would say that your positioning of the book is your point of differentiation. You're probably not going to find a book like this on Amazon or Etsy. That wouldn't surprise me that you didn't find that. But there are tons of books out there on Amazon and Etsy that are around, let's just keep it simple, around dogs.
Right.
There's tons of books about that. So actually, you have already defined your point of differentiation. You're not just doing a book of pretty dogs or mandalas, or I know there's a lot of books like that out there. So your story and the story of the animals itself is your point of differentiation. So in this respect, actually, you can now what's be good about this to do in the research is that you can find the books that are there's a formula. Well, there's a way to find out kind of what the sales are. I can't 100% predict that what this calculator says is 100% accurate, but it can show you what's currently selling. This could now, where this research could be of benefit to you is in terms of potentially style, titles, keywords, categories, that kind of thing. Because if you're just going for the straight sale on Amazon without you directing traffic over to Amazon, you will have to show up in the search some kind of way. So the things like, let's see, let me go back because I don't want to jump too far ahead. But well, actually, this all ties in together. What's the primary reason why your customers buy books? Why do you buy books? Actually, let's stay in flow. We'll come to the research part in a moment. Um, what subjects is the customer currently buying? Primary reason why customers buy books. Those would be around. Well, let's go with it. What's the primary reason why your customer would buy this book? Let's go with that.
Okay. I would say they find the subject matter interesting and they see that the artwork is good enough that they could enjoy um, coloring it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And in this case, something's coming to me. Could it also be too that potentially some of the people that are, and I would say military
Mm,
people buy this book, especially if they're going through some challenges having to get back, if they've suffered any kind of injury or whatever when they were, perhaps the coloring could be a part of their relaxation part, therapy part. Could that be
yeah,
potentially a positioning of that? Okay, okay. That's what's coming up for me as we're talking about it, is that they are trying to, I guess, what's the term? PTSD.
yes.
If they're struggling with that. The one thing I will say though, and this is kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but you have to be really careful not to use any kind of language in your copy that is calling out a particular, like you can't say this book will be helpful to people with PTSD. That's
Gotcha.
considered making a medical claim, and Amazon is cracking down on stuff like that. And you
Okay.
definitely get to do it on Facebook. So you can't call out someone's like race or gender or or medical thing. We can't imply that your book can heal that or
Right.
with that. Um, but words like relaxation, calm, maybe mindfulness, things like that, uh, could definitely be used. So I was thinking, yes, people color because they want to calm down, they want to relax, they want to um, focus, because coloring can be very focusing,
Hmm.
very centering, very calming. Those things that you could use. And again, like picture in your mind different types of people setting down. Maybe even I think even people who you would think, oh well, a guy, wouldn't sit down and color a book, but you'd be surprised. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised because you know the world more intimately, but that would be like, wow. So again, when you said kids, I think, okay, I'm thinking more adults in my mind, and I'm thinking you might be surprised. It may be more of the soldiers.
Yeah. I've
Really.
looked at that, particularly as far as the U.S. Army and I think most countries, as far as like the British Army, and
Mhm.
um, they have certain stores that sell to soldiers on the bases, on the posts, and that kind of thing. I've
Mhm.
looked at selling in those. However, it's kind of it's more of a business. So I think that would be I'd be looking at that maybe next, as far as um if this goes well and I'm able to sell enough copies, and then I could get a little website going and start the business. And then after I have a business going, then I could market that to, it's
Mhm.
called AFES, as far as the name of the military. It's kind of a general store, if you will.
Mhm.
Almost like a department store. They sell everything from cars to coloring books.
Oh, wonderful, 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 wonderful. I forgot about that. I had family members that were in the Army stationed in El Paso when I was a kid growing up, and I think they called it back then the commissary or whatever, or
Hmm.
something like that.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
where,
that's where you buy the groceries.
yeah,
Uh,
okay, okay, okay. Yeah, that would be great. And I was thinking too, that could also be where opportunities could present itself for you to potentially maybe come in and do like little talks or what have you to to the enlisted, the service men and women, and why you created this book. And then like I said, that's direct sales there, and potentially, if it's possible, potentially even have like gatherings where people can sit down with you, and and everyone gets a book and pencils, and you all kind of color together and hang out. And then that way you get a chance to meet and hear more stories, which could inspire future volumes.
yeah,
But, you
yeah,
know,
it's about telling stories. So
you know,
if I can get out and talk to soldiers and veterans, then I can get these stories firsthand and illustrate them to some degree.
yeah. What's coming up for me too is this is bigger than just trying to put some books up on Amazon. So yours is going to be much more like Nefertari's, which is more grassroots marketing. So you would look at, so I've always said this all the time. I said, don't look at Amazon just as the end game. Like, okay, it's up there. People just go randomly find it and they'll go buy it. Yes, you will get organic sales that way. That's fine. But that's not your goal. Your goal is to be able to use them in what I consider them to be a better suited as a fulfillment center. So they are where you can go and get the books printed and produced and that kind of thing. And yeah, people find it organically and they go buy it. That's all well and good and great. But where I feel like you can really get in front of it is to go and buy a box of your own books. And you can buy one up to 999 copies of your book yourself at your author discount. So you would buy the book essentially a little over cost. And then
Okay.
you can resell that book yourself, whatever price you want to sell it for, and you keep the difference. So where someone else was just focusing on strictly sending people to Amazon to go buy the book, I don't recommend that for a couple of reasons. The first point of contact as you're ushering people into your world is to have them go to some kind of what I call a landing page where they are giving you their name and email address in exchange for getting some sample pages from your forthcoming book. You want to have the contact. That is your number as you're developing the book. So I would say your first goal is to get about, I don't know, let's say do a image with the story of that animal, and just maybe do one or two sets of those. Then
Okay.
what you do when you go out there and you start posting and you're talking about it, you will give that interested party those 2 sample pages or 3 sample pages, whatever you want to do, in exchange for contact information. That is paramount. You, even once the book is published, you do not want to send people to Amazon directly to Amazon to go buy that book, because if the person buys that book, unless that customer comes back and tells you, hey, Catherine, I just bought your book, you will never know who bought that book. That's
Gotcha.
Amazon's customer, not yours. So if you get them in your ecosystem, you get them on your email list, then you can send them over to Amazon to go buy the book. But at least you know now they bought it. And then there's a way to incentivize them to let you know that they did buy the book. So for an example, let's say you've got someone on your email list, you send an email to them, or you post some whatever, and you say, hey, the book is available for sale on Amazon, so on and so forth. Maybe you do a screenshot of a review that you got, or maybe an interview that you did with someone, and that's up on YouTube or on a Facebook, and then there's a link there and they go buy the book. Then an incentive is send me or forward me the receipt or something from Amazon that they, to verify they did buy the book, and then you give them something else. So maybe you give them a couple of pages from a new book you're working on, or maybe you have an interview that you did with someone that, you know, maybe it's like a secret interview that was so impactful. It doesn't be a secret interview, but, you know, something that is just really impactful, that they get to see that if they send you the receipt. That way you're building a relationship with that buyer at this point. And then when you release the next book and the next book and the next book, you now have a list of buyers who have bought your book. And then you can let them know about the next book and the next book and the next book that you do, and the future projects and the talks you do, and whatever else you do in terms of developing this. So what I'm saying is, don't look at Amazon as the be all to end all and the end game. Partner with them to help them produce the physical product, but don't use them as the end game where you don't have any ownership of that customer, that potential customer. That's really, really important, because like I said, for any reason, for whatever, who knows why, none of these platforms we own. We don't own Facebook, we don't own Twitter, we don't own TikTok, we don't own Amazon. For any moment, at any reason, for whatever time, who knows, they could just shut your account down.
Yeah.
Who knows why they would do it? But it happens all the time. And if they shut your account down, not only do you lose all that database that you've built up, all that goodwill you've built up in the case of Amazon, not trying to scare you, but just letting you know what the situation is. If there's monies they owe you and they shut your account down, not only do you lose your access to sell the book on the platform, but any money they owe you, they keep. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, you know, you want to partner with them strategically, but you don't want to have all of your, like, your whole business model is all about only selling this book on Amazon, and your whole focus is drive people over to Amazon, drive to Amazon. That's all well and good and great. I'm not saying that it will ever happen to you, but it does happen. And it does happen to coloring book publishers. I've seen it. In the last 6 months, I've seen it. So just be really, I just want you to not to scare, but to be aware that if you're building, it's what's called building your business on rented land. At any given time, at any given moment, they can just decide, you know, we don't want to work with you, or whatever the situation may be. So you got to be really, really just be mindful of. That's all I'm saying. So again, everything is focused around building up as you're building up your audience, you're also building your email list. And I can show you ways to do that. But I just wanted to make sure that I said that, because that's how you're building it from the beginning as a very solid business.
I see.
Okay. Okay. All righty. So let's see here. I think some of this. So we already know what our point of differentiation is. We know that already. We know that your way of connecting with people is going to be a little bit more grassroots. But so let me ask you this question. I'm going to kind of step away from this for a second, ask this question. Have you already started doing the illustrations for this book and gathering those stories? Have you started that process?
Yes, I have. I've
Okay.
just I've got 10, 10 solid stories, another 5 stories. I think that'll work.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there's more out there. It's just figuring out um, what to put in and how to make it curated into a good collection.
Okay. 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 Good. All right. So I would say if you got the process started, your first steps would probably be to then you need to put it out into your current ecosystem. So your personal you're on Facebook, I assume,
Yeah.
and everyone knows who's connected to you. They know your history. So you could do what I call the I'm thinking about post. I don't know if you've heard of that or seen that or not.
Yeah, I heard you mention that. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a good idea
Yep.
before to kind of get that motivation going.
Yeah. Yeah. You do the I'm thinking about post and you just take the temperature. So what you would have basically is you do I'm doing a I'm thinking about post. If you've got some pages already done, there's a template that you can use. It's called what I call like a mock-up template, and you can put those pages inside the mock-up template. And actually, what I'll do instead of talking about it, I'll just kind of show it to you. Let's see here. Let's go to home. And actually, I don't want to. It's okay. I'll come back to this screen. So let's go over here to mock-up. Here's this one. Yes, I think this is it. No, it's this one. This one. Okay. So you would use a template like this. And what you would do on this template is you would put in. So this is an example of the young lady I was talking about earlier. So you would do, you don't have to do all 3 of these, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through it. So you would have, if you have a cover, I know you probably don't have one yet, but I'm just saying, if you had a cover, you could do a cover, you could put a design or something behind it, something from the book. I would say this page, this particular design here would not be applicable to you right now because you're still working all of that. But this one could be, this mock-up style could be. So you could put one page here, one page here. There's some accents that there's all this could be done in Canva. Figure out a background, something to put back here. Or you could do something like this where it's a page flip. What I like about this, viewing something like this when you're doing your first, what I call, I'm thinking about post, is when your current network of people who are currently following you on Facebook, when they see this, this feels tangible and real, like it exists now. Even though the book's not done yet, if I see you post something like this, like, oh, wow, she's actually really putting this together, or this book actually exists. So you're giving people a taste of what the book is going to be. And then you use that same script, and then you ask people to comment. And everyone that comments on that particular post, you would then let them know that you're going to give them a way to go get the book. And then you would go into something that I call a Google form. Now, this is what I call a quick and dirty way to be able to start collecting leads, contacts of people without you having to set up a formal email list management service. If you just want to get the process started, there's a way to do that. And so basically what you would do is you would give them a link to this Google form. And it's a free document you put together in Google Documents. You send them that link. They give you their name and email address. And in exchange, you would send them these sample pages that you illustrate in this document. And that's it. And that's how you can literally start collecting leads like today, or
Gotcha.
whatever. All you need is the form to be able to collect the information, and you would need this mock-up setup. And like I said, you don't have to use all three of these like what I illustrated. You can just use one or other. What I give you is in the prep kit is one of the things I have. I would give you these Canva templates, and then you just fill them in with your own stuff. You know, so that's one way to start collecting leads like immediately. What I like about this is, like I said before, you're not talking about this from down the line thing. You want to start building up your audience. You want to start building up your, I don't mean to do it that way. You want to start building up your audience. You want to start building up your no, you want to start building up your audience as you're building out your book. The one thing that you don't want to do is to go into, go into your studio or go into your whatever and spend months working on your book and then come out and go, ta-da, here it is. You want to be building that up as you're creating the book. So then that way, when the book does become available, you're building up the excitement and the anticipation as you're creating the book. And so then when the book is finally done, then now you have, an interest audience of people who have raised their hand and says, yes, I want to know, Catherine, when this book is done. I want to get it. So there's more we can go into that, but that's just kind of the first steps. Once you get clear about your idea and you're creating your own work, start putting it out there immediately. Do not wait.
Okay.
Do not wait. No, you're missing out.
Because that's one of those things that's probably what I would do. Otherwise is spend, I don't know how long it'll take me to get this, but where I don't have that kind of interaction with people, so I don't really see what people are liking and interest is, and then it's kind of like, okay, now I'm going to try to do everything all at once. Yep.
That's a common thing that many of us as creatives do. We tend to want to go. So I would say this is where you would jump straight into collaboration opportunities. So this is where you're going to, once you do that interest post on your own personal page, this is where then you're going to go into looking at Facebook groups, community centers, clubs, churches, any place that you can look at to see, hey, if I came in and I offered those same 2 pages in exchange for just to come in and talk about this subject. That's what I'm saying. Talk about the story, talk about the inspiration behind the book, why you want to make this book to begin with. And you can, again, in exchange for being able to, in exchange for getting the 2 free pages, they give you your contact information. That way, again, you're not just focusing on your sole Facebook page or personal page to do all the heavy lifting. You want to be out there in person and online, and you're approaching it from the same idea. Hey, I'm working on this book. Maybe you now have a title, or maybe you have 2 or 3 titles that you're thinking about. But what I'm saying is you're collaborating through every step of the way. You're saying, hey, these are the 3 titles that I'm thinking about for the book, and have people vote on it. These are the 3 or 4 mock-up covers that I'm going to get done for the book, and have people vote on it. What you're doing is you're creating content that you're using to build interest in the book as you're developing it. Nothing is done in a vacuum. Okay, so do your personal page for that, and you're never selling anything on your page. You're just asking your personal network, hey, this is what I'm working on. What do you think about this? Give me your feedback. Then, as I said, then this is when we start going into, now we're going to start looking at our network, community centers, churches, the VA could be a potential for you. I mean, of course, any animal rescue related association could be a definite one for you. Social media influencers, grief counselors, event planners, assisted living facilities. When my dad had to go into assisted living, he went into an assisted living facility that was really geared towards veterans. And specifically veterans who had dealt with memory issues. So there's all kinds of organizations out there. This is where your research is going to come into really into important play, and your ability to not be afraid to get in front of these people. Okay. Oh, Yeah. Oh, you said you're going. Okay. So anyway, how do you feel about what we talked about so far, Catherine?
This is fantastic. I feel like I have that and have to pull everything at once or think back until I get these certain steps done. There's stuff I can do now that's not just about my my I'm sorry, doing my pages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You broke up there a little bit, so I missed some of what you said. I said, how are you feeling about um, things we talked about so far? I missed some of that. No, I feel you might still be in a bad.
I am yeah.
Keep talking. I get you're freezing, but I think I can still hear you. If you no, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Okay, okay. I heard. Okay, I think you're gonna come back. Okay. Or Catherine's coming back. So anyway, okay, here she is. Okay.
All right. I think I'm all right now. Okay, so back to your question. Yeah, it's really like I have some direction about where and I also feel like I have to do everything right. Wait to do stuff that I can kind of have this steady progress towards working towards getting up to and not just getting published, getting it um once I'm there. So I think that's great.
Okay. Yeah, it's still breaking up a little bit. Um, yeah, but I think I got the gist of what you were saying. It was breaking up a little bit, but I think what I got is that you feel like you've got enough to kind of get yourself started with the process of getting it out there. And so what I'll say, and as we're waiting for your reception to kind of or whatever to line back up again, is this is really sort of the process of for you watching this. This is sort of the process that I take new students and members through who join me in the society. Is that I feel that I mean, I just know from personal experience, it's work. It's not, if you're really passionate about it, the work, it doesn't feel like work. It can feel daunting at times because there's new things maybe you're not familiar with. But that's also part of the process is that I make myself available to help when you get into those stuck points when the Google Forms acting weird or the Canva thing is not lining up, whatever the situation may be. That's part of what I enjoy doing so much is getting in there when those stuck moments come up, when you try to get a file done and it's supposed to be this size file, but they gave it to you this size file, so it doesn't line up or it doesn't work, or the template's acting weird, or God help us, Amazon is acting all weird and you're uploading the file and they're rejecting it and saying that it's not formatted right and all of that crazy fun stuff. So anyway, that's part of what I love helping new creators do inside the society is that I'm in there every step of the way throughout the process. And I sort of adopted I guess I never thought about it that way, but sort of the military no soldier left behind, no author left behind. It's like I won't leave you there. You will get that book done. I'm determined about
Yeah.
that. So
Well, thank you. Thank
yeah, you'll get that.
yeah, that is and the other thing I feel like this is more attainable now. It was kind of like an idea that I've had in my head, but I hadn't really done much other than a couple drawings here and there. And now that I've got my idea centered down, I really just have one drawing that I've been working on that'll work with this book. And so, but again, this is something I can do. I feel like I can do it with your help.
I would love to have.
If this would feel too much doing it by myself.
Okay, well, awesome. I would love to help you. Really. So what I'm going to do at this point, Catherine, is I'm going to stop the recording. And then if you got a few minutes, we'll just chat for a couple of more things and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna stop the recording here. But anyway, I just want to leave it at this point for you watching the replay. You've kind of gotten a taste of what it's like to what one of these validating your book idea sessions look like. And if this is something that you're interested in doing with me one-on-one, to actually have me go through this process with you, to help you see the things that maybe you can't see because you're too close. This is I did this actually for the first time last week, and I actually got so much out of it because I initially thought I would just give this workbook as a standalone, and I do. But I feel like that this one-on-one session time can be really valuable because it helps me to get insight into your topic, and it helps, I think, the person I'm helping, working with, helps them to see things in a fresh new way. So sometimes people who don't know us have insight because they don't know us, they don't know all of our stuff. So when I'm talking to someone new that pinpoints on things that I hadn't thought about, I go, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a different take on it that I hadn't seen. So I feel like that's where the value can come in. So if this is something that you're interested in, I'm going to leave a link here at the bottom of this video to find out how you can get one of those sessions with me, because I actually did this as just an experiment and I enjoyed it. I get like a lot out of like talking to you all one-on-one. So anyway, if something you're interested in, I'll put a link at the bottom of how to get that. And then we'll get on the phone and we'll talk, and or get on Messenger and we'll talk, and we'll figure it out. All righty. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. And I'm going to stop the recording and talk to Catherine for a little bit. And stay tuned for new updates about new things I'm working on. All righty. Let me stop the recording. Where is the stop recording button? Oh, here we go. Okay. Start recording. Did we stop? No, it's still recording.